what he was talking about before we took a break. But then we're gonna try to make it more streamlined to discuss the document so we can get through it, and then we can talk about more contemporary issues.
All right, the conclusion to the cliffhanger. I think I know we finally got the men to stop fighting amongst each other, to put an end to all this fighting. Like I asked, who knows what's the first thing he did after that? But he went back to the women. Went back to the women. And because our ways have been almost forgotten as to how we conduct ourselves, that for, decades they're fighting. So he says to the women, go into the woods, go look around, and when you see whatever it is, come back and tell us what you've seen. And the women came back. And some said, we've seen a heron. Somebody says, we've seen a snake. Some said, we've seen a turtle. We've seen a wolf. We've seen a bear. We've seen a hawk. So they went through all of that. He says, no, that's going to be the totem of your family. You're not become a bearer, but bear is a symbol of your family. He says, now you, women, it is going to be you who will start to help to reorganize our society. We will put back in place the clan system, because all of them always had the clan system. And so now the mothers, this is why the woman's nomination belt was brought into. This belt, and what this belt was put together for, was to always remind all of us, remind you the women, the power that you have. That it would be you who would start to rebuild our society. You, as one with the earth, who brings life forth, you know what the life is a lot better than the men do. So this is why it was you as the women, as you raised the children, you see the qualities in the children. You were the ones who was most connected to the children. You knew everything about those children. That's why it was up to you to choose who would be the ones to represent the voice of the families. This belt is very important.
Yeah.
And you women should know this. And you should start to implement this. We cannot just carry a belt around and show one another. We have to make it live. Nothing is worth anything if you don't carry it out. And that's what that Peachstone game was about. Was carrying out your responsibilities. And the men have been told, go and lay on your bellies. Wait for the women to reorganize. But in the meantime, you don't just lay there. You make sure that nothing happens. Nothing happens, nothing interferes with what your Afghanistan is doing. Nobody. And they make sure they maintain, kind of like provisional government, until the time the women are ready. And they will call the men and tell the men what their decision is.
Yeah.
But they also recognize that they must give their nominations to the men. And the men have to share their knowledge and their experiences with the ones who have been nominated. Because sometimes a man is a perfect man in front of you women. But when he's not with the women, he has a different side to him. And so the men need to make the women clear this. That is he respectful? Is he knowledgeable? Is he selfish? Is he greedy? They need to tell the women what they know of that man. So they go through the process of elimination until both sides of the house have accepted the choice of both sides of the house. So this belt is very important. And this is what the women have to start to take, is their rightful place. And the Ghanaians understood that because you talked to Chigumsa.
Yeah.
You finally understood there was a different perspective.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop there, because this guy's gonna bother me if I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're gonna try to streamline this. So we're gonna go line by line and look for a brief commentary from each of our distinguished guests. Okay. So starting from the top. The great law of peace is based upon three principles: peace, equity, or justice, and the power of the good minds. So I'd appreciate if maybe to dissect it with language. Well, what did we say?
School, like media.
Nega di wahine, na hodo wado ne, what does it say when we introduce ourselves to Kayana Rosa? Ne skono, peace. In our worldview, peace is almost like a sound mind, a happiness, a family, a goodness. The different, and you know, the word peace, we've heard it from a European concept. The Europeans don't know peace. They understand peace as absence of war. Us, we look at peace as pleasant, happy life. It's a total different concept. Negadi, neskono. You know, it's an amazing thing. When we see each other, we say, Segu skono. Even when we greet each other, we talk about peace. Again, are you in peace? That's how we greet each other when we see each other on the street or in the neighborhood. That's how skana is part of our very essence, our very experience. It's not separate from anything. It's in our heart. It's in our mind. It's in our being. Skana. Tanu gadi o ne got such stuff. Strength. Peace. You have to have a deep inner strength to have Tkayeri. You gotta have a conviction. You gotta believe in it. It's not just a half second. It's not just something to say. It's not just a good speech at the UN. It's the real thing. It's the real God substance. It's the strength to help somebody when they're in need. It's the strength to be available to somebody who you may not totally agree with, but to be there for them when they need you. That substance is a very essence of our life. We all have it. We all have a great strength. We all have a great strength of loving kindness. We all have a great strength of disdain also. But we choose to have it in a positive manner. And then here's the catch. Here's the real big one. The power of a good mind. What is that? I don't know if today, in today's society, we can actually say we have a power of a good mind, because our world is full of European influence. We were sent to school to learn their history their way. We were sent to school to learn our history their way. We never heard the true story about our way. We missed what our grandparents should have been telling us. Tkayeri is we were born with it. But if you don't practice it, it gets missed. We don't use it enough. Tkayeri is the pleasant thought. And it comes to today, a lot of times our so-called Lodianisu will use that term in a not fulfilling way. It's the same misinterpretation of their understanding of sovereignty. They say sovereignty. Do they really encourage us to be sovereign, or is it just them? Is today's concept, is today's reality, is today's existence that we hold our own peace, or is somebody else controlling it? Are we under corporations, or are we under our free will? That Tkayeri is a beautiful thing, but I believe that we have been misled. We need to get back home. We need to get back to understanding how it is that we have such a beautiful, wonderful way of life. I explained it yesterday this way. I said, we were all each given a certain way to be in our life existence. One of them is our language. Pure and simple, the most important survival of a nation, of our people, is our language. Pure and simple. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Second is the way we present ourselves, the way we clothe ourselves, the way we make other people aware of who we are. We are Ugahuan. Let's not be faking somebody else. Let's not be pretending we're somebody else. Let's be true to ourselves. The third thing is we need to each have our song. Each and every one of us need to find happiness in our own individual spiritual song. That's sovereignty. Not some corporation that calls themselves chiefs. We don't have chiefs. We have Lodianisu, the people who hold up the good way. Chiefs is a very foreign word, a foreign object. Lodianisu, women, they hold up the good way. Now,
Would you like to say anything on it? Perhaps about Rio or Rio Swinsela?
See, there's different ways of looking at it and explain this. I'm just gonna talk about, when I was growing up, I always heard, Scon, and how the old people would talk about it, they said, this is Garihuio. Orohuio, you what's got to hide. We see the reality. There is no question that creation has the ultimate truth. That's Garihuio. When you say Orohuio, it's something that is real. And that's Garihuio. That it's the way of the truth, the way of reality. And they said, that's why we say Garihuio. Not because of this new teachings they call the code. That's not Garihuio. That's Garihuio Stumcha.
yeah.
That's a reality that has been created in the minds of men. And it only exists in the minds of men. It does not exist in the natural world. It's their belief, their truth. But it requires no truth. This is why it relies on faith. Faith is not to question, but to believe. And that's what people are being told. Just believe, do not question us. And today when they talk about the good mind, if you question them, they say you don't have a good mind. But I always tell people, a good mind is a mind that works. Not a mind that takes direction, but one that is being exercised. It's like a muscle. If you don't use it, you lose it. So that's Garihuio. Gasatstansara is that how we were created. We have a power. All of us, as he mentioned, each one of us has a power. And when we take that power and we combine it with Gariwio, and those two things work together, then you will have Skona. That's what Skona is. And that's what you have to do. You take those three things. That's why we have Kanehoro, Kahitawano, and the Aduma. That reaffirms those three. And Tkayeri tells us, not Tkayeri Astuagoa tells us that we cannot separate these. We can't separate them. We have to make it work together. Because by having all those major parts together, we will continue to go on. And we will be a strong people. And we will be a much happier people. And that's what Tkayeri and Ayuwaka in the story, that's what they were trying to get us to understand. That's what Chikung says they were trying to get us to understand. But remember, I keep saying the story because it is Ogara. Because the characters in the story, you need to think about what their names. Their names. Because they were not actual people, but they're characters in the story. Like Ayuwaka is not the name of a man. Ayuwaka is the responsibility of a territory family.
Yeah.
Yo. Yeah. Next line. The first and main principle of the great law is peace. The great peacemaker commanded our people to throw their weapons of war beneath the great tree of peace, never to raise weapons against one another. We are instructed to use the spiritual power given to us in the place of weapons of war.
Earlier today, I explained that to everybody. It's not weapons of war that we have gotten rid of. Because it's not weapons that makes you fight. It is those negative emotional feelings. That's what we had to get rid of. And we had to start to learn how to love one another, to respect one another, to work together, and so on. That's what we work for. Get rid of the greed, get rid of the jealousy, get rid of those egos, get rid of all those things that causes us to fight. Get rid of the rumors and the gossip. That's what makes us fight, not weapons. And that because those things that are referred to as weapons were tools. Tools to hunt, tools to fish, tools to defend ourselves. We were a people always who would strive for peace, but we have never been pacifists. Because creation put in every single life form on this earth something instilled in every living being. It's called self-preservation. And if life did not have that instinct of life preservation, there would be no life on earth today. It was intended for us to go on. It was intended for us to survive. It was intended for us to bring new life onto this earth. And so, I just want to say, I think we've covered that. But just like to say it again. Others will talk about it.
Yeah. Next line. Anyone raising weapons against their own people is breaking the first principle of the great law. By these actions, they remove themselves from the protection of the great law of peace.
I just have a few things to say. It's true that we should not pick up any weapons against one another. But what do we do when our land is being invaded? What do we do? What did we do on July 1990 when the Quebec provincial police were coming at us and shooting at us? If we didn't have weapons, they would have killed all of us. I was there that morning. I experienced that. They lost one man, Colonel Lamont. They had weapons of war. We had weapons too. We defended ourselves for 15 seconds. And it's my firm belief that we prevented a massacre by our behavior with our defense. It's exactly right that we should not raise arms against one another. But look at our history. We were enticed to participate in their wars. When the English and the French were fighting one another, who did they have to fight on their behalf? We had pressure to raise arms. It wasn't of our making, but it happened. What happened in 1990? When they saw dog. It was us. It's true proof that we have to be realistic about it. We can't, the European mind doesn't understand our defense of our territory. They assume it's theirs. So that's what I have to say about that. It's true. We should not raise weapons. But the fact is, we have a beautiful way of life. We have granite gold. There's no question about that. But self-preservation is a human instinct, and it's going to take place. We're gonna defend ourselves. There's no question about that. That's human nature. So, the Onondagas, this letter, some of you may know what they did to the entrepreneurs. Onondaga businessmen were running a business, and the council didn't agree with the way things were going. So what they did is they bulldozed them down. They didn't have arms, but they have Onondaga County Police with arms on them to take care of their position. They had the Onondaga County Police with their guns to do what they would not do. And it happens to us. It will happen to, look at what happened to you guys. The OPP were shooting at you.
Mm-hmm.
What do we do? We're just gonna have an invisible bulletproof shield? Doesn't happen that way.
So then those weapons could also be your own people bringing in like foreign laws, legislation, outside police, incorporating, like it being incorporated. Like those are all weapons that they're using against their own people, right?
Exactly. It's when there's weapons involved, there's more than just bullets. There's evil. There's negativity. They use the court system against you. They use their laws that's foreign to us to oppress us on our own land, our own territory. They got a court that says if you go on this property, you're gonna get charged. So how do we defend ourselves? We can't just lay down and expect them to protect us because they're not gonna. All these new legislation, they're gonna destroy us. They are out to destroy us as a nation. They're out to take all the small lands that we have left. They want that too. Look at how you guys know this story. All this land is yours. We are on a small land and they still want that. This is a very difficult topic and it raises emotions. I get upset with it because of what I've been through, personally. But I don't want to bring it up. I'm just saying, be careful about trusting somebody who wears a badge because they also wear a gun. And they use it. That's all I have to say about that.
I just want to say, keep questions and comments until after we get through the thing, because we're trying to get through it in a timely manner.
Sure, should never take up arms against one another. But when our ancestors put these things together, for us never to take up those weapons against one another. It said never to take up these weapons against one another, that we should always fall the way creation had intended us. But again, we had to do everything we could to protect the birthright and the future of our children. Today, we have been conditioned to believe, oh wow, he's an Ungwahumwe, but he wears a policeman's uniform. He or she is an Ungwahumwe, but they represent Canada under the Indian Act. They're not representing you. And the thing is that they put a system in place they call the Hunijokwagon, an elective system. The thing is that they tried to destroy our system. And they brought in a system, Hunijokwagon. It means they would form groups to compete against one another. And this way, one would win over the other because one had better speakers, one had a bigger family, one had something else to make them get into office. By a system like that, it creates a division because you're going to have a winner and a loser. Where is Satyavartha? Where do we become of like mind? We have winners and losers. When our people would do something, they say, okay, what's up here? Each of our families has a fire. And each of our families has a right to express their opinion. And this is what we throw across what we say, we throw our fire across. It's not about a fire between us. It's about the opinions of our family. That's what we express to one another. And we work on that. That's where that's where we're searching in each other's minds. All of our knowledge and all of our experience we put together. And we'll find the solution to our problem. It was by peaceful means. And we were able to accomplish those things. But these people talk about law again. That's not ours. We are not a people of law. A people of law who are a controlled people. Before they had laws, it was the rule of kings and queens. Then they had something called the Magna Carta, which gave a little bit to some of the serfs, people who watched over the lands. And everybody else was a peasant. And they sort of worked towards last names, citizens. And last name, the purpose of last names was for taxation. And that's what they came. They tried to take away our identity and give us last names, give us Christian names, and to fall under their system. Because a citizen really is only one step above being a slave. And people are given the illusion that if they take part in an election, that they have their voice heard, but it's not true. And if you understand the white man's system, it is not the popular vote that makes the decision. It's what they call their electoral college. And the electoral college, you have to understand, is people who have an interest in serving the corporations. And that's who decides. Governor Tkayeri, when he ran, he was a popular vote. But they gave the title to George Bush to be the president. There's a lot of corruption in that system. That system doesn't work. It just keeps us more divided. And so we have to understand again, it's our ways we have to go by. It's our ways, not law. Because law, you have no part in making law. Laws were made by the elite to control the masses. Okay?
So, now automatic weapons, AK-47s, bazookas, and mortars are in Mohawk country. People have been killed, and many Mohawks are refugees from their homes in fear of their lives. This is a violation of the first law of haudenosaune, peace.
there was a time that was us now. It was a very, very difficult time. We were split. The issue was over gaming, with us. What happened was individuals, people, citizens, all the people, through outside investors started opening up private casinos. It's a fact, it's what happened. And the council, the Longhouse Council, was against it. And it created a very, very hostile, very, very difficult situation, and it cost 2 lives. But it's not just one side that had the guns. They initiated roadblocks. The Chiefs Council initiated roadblocks, and they had guns. And they had things to disrupt the flow of traffic. And it was a very, very terrible time. We still have effects of that today in Possession. Our longhouse split. It's a sad situation. We have never had any help from the other nations in terms of repairing that. None. All they did was create accusations and threats. They made fake statements. People from Akwesasne would come here to the Chiefs Council here in Oswego, and they would lie to the chiefs about what was going on. They lied about me. They said that I had a list of people who I'm going to kill. They actually said that. I have no desire to kill nobody. Never did, never will. I don't like what they did, but that doesn't mean I'm going to kill them. Warren Lyons went on public radio saying that I'm promoting to disrupt the Chiefs Council. He doesn't know what I was talking about because he doesn't speak in our language. I was talking to our young people in our language to have peace, be strong, and don't let them push you around. My friends, the Onondagas in this quotation is based on false information. They don't know what they're talking about. They weren't there. I was there. And it's painful. It hurts my heart today. I don't know, we sit at home and we think, we wonder if our community council, our community longhouse is ever going to come back to an understanding of oneness. But I have to say something here that a lot of people might have an objection to. And I'm going to be perfectly honest. On one hand, you have got to let go. And on the other one, you have got to wheel. You have the people who believe you got to let go. And you have a group of people who insist on the code of Pennsylvania. That is the basic problem. We have a set of teachings that is being incorporated into our traditional way that's not of our making. It's not of our tradition. It's a message that they received about some of the ills of that time, and it's become manufactured righteousness. It's not natural, not something. That's the divide. And I know that the divide is here in this community too. You have to sort it out. I'm not going to say, but until we resolve that issue, my friends, our grandchildren are going to suffer. It has corrupted. They have no room for women leaders. There's no opportunity for you to voice your concern. They only speak for us. They don't allow us to say what's we see is the benefit. Like that in almost every community in Tkayeri. I'm sad to say that, but it's the truth.
Yeah. I'd like to add more to this. You know, yes, we just gotta get that. I've always been one of them. I've taken up a gun many times. I never took up a gun to go and kill somebody. But I picked up a gun to protect our people, to protect who we are, to defend. I've seen when we didn't have guns, we evicted all the white people out of Gunawara. 2,800 of them we evicted. We went just with ourselves and we told them they had to get out. Because we wanted our young families to come home. And so that's what we had to do. And when we did that, and when there was a few of us at one location, they came in with 40 riot squad with 3-foot-long clubs, masks, shields, looked like a stopper with their high boots, came in. They waited when there was only a handful of us. And we fought back, but we fought with this. Well, we were overwhelmed. There was only about 7 of us, and we had to fight. You know, some of us got pretty injured in that, but we still would fight back. After we went and people came back, we turned over their police cars, but we didn't have weapons. We had only ourselves. We flipped over the cars and then ran them out of Gunawara. A few hours later, they came back, marching like armies, all in rows, carrying their guns. It was only then that we went home. We didn't have AK-47s, we didn't have bazookas, we didn't have none of those. We had hunting rifles and shotguns. That's what we went home to get because that's all we had. We never had reason to have AK-47s. We just went home and got our hunting rifles. What we used to go for deer, moose, rabbits, partridge, that's what we had. And that's what we defended ourselves with. We built bunkers, everything. We defend ourselves. That's when we took up arms. And so, ever since then, they come more and more at us, and we know what they're capable of. We knew at that time what they were doing to other Ugahumas all over the land. When they attacked the people at Pit River, when they attacked the people in other territories, and that. They came in, they talked to our people about peace. But if our people, to them, peace was our people complying with what they tell us. That's what they call peace. And if we didn't comply, then they beat our people, arrested our people, and shot at our people. Thousands of rounds they shot at our people. We were lucky in BC. They didn't kill nobody, but they shot thousands of rounds. They used armored personnel carriers. When they came to Gunawara and Anasadag, and they came with APCs, they came with tanks, they came with jets, helicopters, everything. And when our people fought them on the island, our people fought them with this. They didn't fight them with guns. And we put many of them in that hospital. But we were defending our home. We were defending our land. Today, we have police forces being built up in our territory. Gunawara, I know we got about 50 cops now. Akuzata, I can't even tell you how many, there's so many police forces there. We're putting uniforms on our children with a badge, a gun, bulletproof vests, helmets, shields. They've got an arsenal. You want to talk about all these weapons? That doesn't have these weapons. The paramilitary forces in our communities are the ones who have these weapons. Onondagas didn't have a force of their own. Like my brother said, they used the Onondaga County Sheriffs, they used the federal marshals, and they used the New York State Police Riot Squad to beat up the people. And then the council. And I'll tell you, The Onondaga Council decided that they wanted to take over the businesses. Leon Shenandoah got up and he told them, and here's the Adudapo at the time. He says, you, Rodianeso, have no right to interfere with the economy of our territories. He says, that belongs to our people, especially the women. It's always been the women who determine what the economy of our territories would be, not Rodianeso. Right then and there, they wanted to depose him as the Adudapo. And the Onondaga Council did not have the authority to do that. Only one got up and said to them, you can't depose him. That's not an Onondaga title. That's a confederacy title. And only the confederacy can remove him. And so they got upset with that. But we showed up there, a few of us, and we told the doctor that we respect that title. And we respect that if ever he was to be removed, it would be in accordance with our way, and nobody was going to come in there and just railroad him out. And he told us then, he says, you know, he said, I never had anything against you to discourage extra. He said, I always agreed with you. But he was under the pressure. And he says, you know how many documents I signed that I didn't even know what I was signing? And sometimes you sign something that he had one eye he couldn't see out of, but the other one wasn't that good. And that. But he says all they did was parade me around because of my title. That's all. So he asked us to stay at his hospital bed and not to allow them to take that title away from who it belongs to. But the Onondagas there wanted to take that title and claim it as their own. And that. They didn't get it, but they still went ahead and put somebody else in. But it was not a choice of the Confederacy. Today, the Onondaga that sits there, personally I cannot respect, because it was not done properly, and he was not ever qualified for that position. And so, this thing that they say about us, I would have loved to have a grenade launcher. But this is not true. In time, we did acquire some more proficient weapons, I guess, to defend ourselves. But we've never been the aggressor. We've always been defenders. You know.
Titles, positions of responsibility, and process of raising leadership are inherent in the Tkayeri2021. Individuals cannot designate themselves as leaders and holders of titles. This is the responsibility of the clans, clan mothers, council of chiefs, and the final authority, the Grand Council of Chiefs.
I don't have a problem with that, except for the last 4 words. Speak with you. It's you. That's your problem. Those titles are yours. Your clan belongs to your clan. And you have an opinion about that, and you should exercise it. You have to go home and work with your clan, because that's where the authority is of research, finding out who best can voice your words. The women, and the clan mothers, are the ones, like the government already explained it. They're the ones who know. They're the ones. They're the ones who can talk about what is it, the characteristics that can voice the opinion of your family on an ongoing, as a lifestyle, as a life way. I just want to say one thing about this. There was a time in Apazaki when I believe it functions properly. I was asked to participate as a responsibility called Rodenu Satsteris. It's a small title where my responsibility was of protocol. I would be in charge of proper protocol when there's a council, when there's a women's council, a men's council, a chief's council, or whatever. And I would be called upon to interpret proper protocol, but not discussions or decisions. It worked well. I'm very, very fortunate to have had very good teachers, clan mothers. All clans had a functioning clan mother and were responsible towards the Lodiades. And I was very privileged to have been able to learn from them. But it does not exist anymore. It's not like that anymore. It's in total disarray. The clan mothers, they don't listen to them anymore. They're self-appointed chiefs of corporations that are representing you. You have to take that plan and put it back to work. So, it's like we've been talking about it all afternoon. The most important function is what the clan decides it needs for its family. All 50 titles, each one, the backbone of it is the women and the Gatnistos, the clan members. There's no other, there's no chief council of the Grand Council. There's no such thing as Grand Council anyway. There's no such thing. What I understand a Grand Council is only when they are convened, to recite Tkayeri go, and is the time they have Grand Council. That's the way I understand. The 50 titles are divided up with each nation. Each string here represents a family. But the backbone is the women. It really, really is unique. It's like the Tekarontake has said it several times, and I'll say it several times. This, this is a very basic teaching. It holds in there our rights and responsibilities. It holds in there our special alliances towards one another. How we work with one another. All the way through. Each one has a distinguished responsibility. Ladies and gentlemen, in all of my 50 years, I have never seen a full council. Never. Many times, others were absent. Many times, there was no cayutas. Sometimes there was 3 onadagas. Most of the time, I think the Aga were in full council. They didn't want it to work. They wanted to make it look like it worked, and then go in the back room and make a decision for the betterment of the members' council. How do they line their pockets with gold and silver? That's the game, my friends. They have formed corporations around these titles to make money. It was never intended for that. It was for protection of our territories. It was for the protection of our people. It was protection of our way of life. It was never to align anybody with money. But that's our reality today. Well, we start sky out the Whitney. Yeah, they're gonna hold the It seems like their great spiritual value is the dollar bill, not Subayatism or Kasastuksa. You have to come home to this way, my friends. It's our only survival. We have no other way. We cannot depend on any elected system. We can't depend on the United Nations. We can't depend on anybody else except each other. Between us, we can fix it. with the help of the natural world that we survive in. Pay attention to it. It belongs to you. That's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, we touched on this point already, the next point, so just keep it like really brief, so we're running short on time. Okay. The men of the nation, those who do not have titles, are called Tkayeri, which means the men who carry the bones, the burden of their ancestors, the ancient ones on their back. There is no word for warrior in the language of the haudenosaune. Therefore, those who have designated themselves warriors have no tradition within the haudenosaune.
1968, we rekindled a fire, council fire of the men. We were all young guys then, teenagers. We were listening to the old timers talking, and they're talking about responsibilities, and they're talking about the role of the men, and about that the men have a fire that is their fire that they can counsel. That the women have a fire that's their counsel. Then there's a people's council when the two come together. And then there's a council of Rudian. And then when all the territories come together, you'll have a big council. But we knew that at that time that this fire of the men did not exist. And so we started out with only 7 of us. And we said, we're going to take that responsibility and start fulfilling our role and responsibility as we're just going to get. And so that's what we did. Then we went to the council at home, and we said to them, we want to rekindle our fire as we're just going to get there. Will you sanction us? They said no. We wondered why. And they explained to us. They said it is not up to Rutianetsu to decide about being Rudiskaragete. He says it's in Tkayeri. You as the male, you have that responsibility and no one needs to give you permission. You take your role as a man. So that's what we did. But in that time, as it was growing, we were few, and what we were up against was so great. We were up against Canada, the United States, Ontario, Quebec, New York. We were up against all these forces. And we were also up against native police forces. And because anything we tried to do in a way of asserting our birthrights, we were always met with opposition. And so, some of our learned elders said to us, you know, you are few. You're not very strong, being so few. He says, one thing you need to understand, he says, our people are in a psychological war. He says, so you need to build your arsenal, your psychological arsenal. He says, the white man, for generations, has convinced us and their own people that all we are about as Oklahoma is that we like to go to war, we like to fight. So they call us the fighting Indians of the Americas. They call us savages, they call us bucks, they call us all kinds of things, but always had to do with war. He says, they like to use the term warrior. He says, when they refer to our young men. He says, so why don't you use the term warrior as part of your psychological weapon? And so, he was also an artist, so we had to make us a crest. And we only had really the 7 guys at that time. There were others who showed interest, but there were 7 guys who were really the serious guys. So, we had to make us a patch saying, Rudiskaragete, Mohawk Warrior Society. And so we went to a printer and we asked the printer to make us 7 of these. And he looked at it, he said, you know, he said, for a few dollars more, you can get 250 of them. What? You Yeah, okay, the more we bought, the more cheaper it got. So we bought 250. And only 7 of us got, gonna wear a patch. But when we put the patch on, all the young people gonna want it. And so we had a meeting, the 7 of us, what do we do with it? That people want it. Do we sell it to them? What do we do? So we said, well, we bought them already. Let's give them away. Let's give it to everybody. So now we had 250 people walking around with this patch. So the psychology that happened was that the police and the government and everybody was in a panic because there's so many warriors now. So that's how we did that kind of stuff. That was the reason for using the term warrior. But we went to all the territories, all the longhouses, and we explained to everybody why we were going to use the term warrior society. We said, we know where the Tkayeri, and we know what our duties and responsibilities are. Let's not get into this semantics and use that word against us. It was only part of our psychological arsenal. We also know is that, like it says in here, the ones who carry the bones. Now why the heck would we want to carry bones? It's not Tkayeri, it's Tkayeri. When a young man, his voice begins to change, he's taken by his uncles. And he's taken, and he goes through a 4-day fast. And in that 4 days, he believes he's alone. Got no food, no water, no company, no comforts, no nothing. Just him and nature. And he has to sit there for 4 days and 4 nights. Hungry, cold, lonely, scared, thirsty. But every time those things came to him, first thing that came to his mind, if I was sitting by my mother's fire, she would feed me. If I was sitting by my mother's fire, she'd give me drink. If I was sitting by my mother's fire, I would not be lonely. I would not be scared. All these things that he was experiencing, if he was with his mother, this would be happening to him. That was the purpose of him to be put in that circle. Because from childhood he was spoiled. Now he had to know what it was to be without his mother. Now he could no longer take her for granted. Now everything that he enjoyed went back to his mother, his women relatives, his grandmother. So when they went get him to bring him back, his uncle asked him, what stands out most in your mind? What did you see? Because when you don't eat and drink for 4 days, you start to even hallucinate. And so this young boy would say what he saw. And his uncle took him back to his mother's. They fed him, they let him rest, they gave him drink, and that. When he got better, they asked him that question again. What stands out most in your mind? The reason they asked him the question was his character. Was he truthful? Was he consistent? And he needed to tell the same way he told his uncles. And that he said, okay. So while he was up in that circle by himself, his mother, his grandmother, his sister, his aunt, somebody made him a pouch. And so when he came down, and when he told his story about what he seen, they took a symbol of whatever that was, and they put it in that pouch. And then, now that he experienced about the importance of his women relatives, his family, when he was born, his grandmother, or one of his aunts, took his umbilical cord, she dried it, and she saved it for this day. Now that he's no longer taking his women, relatives, his people for granted, she put that umbilical cord in his medicine pouch. Then the final thing they would put in there, oh God, the soil, his mother. They put that in there. Tied it, either hung around his neck or he hung on his waist. that now, forever, as long as he's traveling as Arungwe, Roscoragete, Ogora is the soil. Rogete means he's carrying it. Roscoragete. That's who we are. And the reason we have to carry the soil with us is because when the women dance, and all our philosophy and beliefs about the female life, the women, the earth, the moon, and all those female life that takes care of us, they're all one and the same. And so when the women dance, their feet never leaves the ground. They shuffle, because they're rooted to the earth. When the man dances, he dances. One foot comes up and down. That's to symbolize his role model is that sun. And that sun touches the earth during the day. And at night he removes himself. So that's why the men dance with their feet going up and down. We always understood these things. We were taught these things. But these guys who put this stuff together, apparently were not taught. Because I know most of these guys that make the decisions, they don't even speak our language. They don't even know Owonagayu. They only speak dialect, or else they take information from books. They're book-learned Indians. And they like to try to make us believe things that aren't so. There are things today we say it's in our culture. What I like to explain to the people is that there are a lot of things that we are led to believe that's supposed to be our law, our way. But they're not ours. They're temperance rules from people like the Mormons, the Quakers. Because one of the things that we say today is when we make corn husk dog, we never put a face on it. That's not ours. It became a tradition, but it's not ours. It comes from the Mormons and Quakers because they don't put faces on their dolls. If you went to the Smithsonian Institute, go to the Albany Museum or the Museum of Man, you will see corn husk dolls in there from 300 and 400 years ago. They all have faces. That's why I say to everybody all the time, don't just accept what you're told. Investigate it. Dissect if what you're told is true. Because this is rumor and gossip. This is rumor and gossip. And the thing is, these people are self-serving. The thing is that they talk about title. You know something? That's not a number one concept. That's not a number one concept, idol. Our way. Each and every one of our families has a characteristic, has a responsibility. And you need to start to learn what those names are. You need to learn what is the Garihogo. You need to know is what Tkayeri or Anyuaka or any of these names. You need to start to look into what do they actually mean. Because that will tell you what the responsibilities are. But the thing I need to say to you all is that I meet everybody, and everybody will say, I'm a wolf, I'm a bear, I'm a turtle. Okay, which bear are you? Which turtle are you? Which one are you? What family do you come from? Because we do not have a clan so that we can have a necklace. That's not what it's for. It's about our responsibility. And what is our responsibility to everyone? That's why this Ojo Kwan Haksa, it's the way it is. We all hold this responsibility together. And every one of these strings is a responsibility. And where's the long one? Okay, there's supposed to be a long one. At the top. And you see in the story, the top at the top. At the top is not a man. Atotako is a responsibility. We are all connected by that title because that's why it's a title of all of Ganushinuni Umwe. And he has a responsibility not to be our leader, but he has a responsibility to always make sure that he's available, that when the runners come, he will receive their message, and he will decide if what they bring forth warrants a call for the gathering of the territories. If it's difficult, and he has many issues, he can sit with the Onondagas and consult with them, but he does not need their approval. He makes the final decision of what the agenda is, and he will send out the runners to all of the people, to notify all the people when they're going to meet and what is on the agenda. The people don't go there and gather blindly. They get to discuss it. In their homes, they discuss it. Then they know what to give to their representative when he carries their voice to the council, to the big fire. And that, it's not what happens today. Today, they just gather. Maybe there's 12 of them, and they call themselves the Grand Council, and they make decisions without our knowledge, without our consultation. They're not representing us, they represent themselves. And it's all based on profit. Profit. That's why the only weapon they have against the people is the rumors and gossip. I'll tell you something. Ateronhiatakon, myself, the Delaronde, and others, we've been traveling for years, talking about these things, trying to inform the people. And you know something? We've never been challenged by the so-called knowledge. No one follows us. We don't put it out. It's people put it out on the internet, on Facebook, whatever they call it. They're putting it out there. And nobody's challenging. Nobody has been able to come and say to us, it's not true. Not even him. Nobody's challenged us. And they talk about Tkayeri recitals. We've yet to hear a recital. We have not heard a recital. We have heard the story of the formation of the league, the peacemaker journey, but they never say to the people, this is Tkayeri and to teach and to bring to the knowledge of the people what is their responsibility, what is their power, and how do they express, how do they assert their power. What are the roles of each and every one of us? That's never told. Because if they do, then they expose the underside of their belly. And the people, once the people have the knowledge, the people become very dangerous. Because the power, the knowledge is power. And that's what you have to do. You have to start learning who you are. You have to start learning your language and act. But remember something, there's no magic pill. It's going to take the effort on your part to learn. And it's not going to be all fixed at a recital. You are going to be made aware of things, but you have to use your minds. You have to decide what can you do, not what can somebody else do for you. Myself and others, we've traveled, and people all think that we're going to come and fix it for them. We can't. We cannot help those who will not help themselves. You have to be ready to do it. And we'll stand with you. Not behind you, with you.
Just one small thing. I support everything my brothers say, except the the last part of this, it says, therefore, those who have designated themselves warriors have no tradition within the haudenosaune. That is absolutely bullshit. We have the title Ayungas under the Ganihoga with the Haga people. I was appointed that time. And I lived up to those responsibilities to the best of my ability to this day. Amen.
Yo.
Great law and sovereignty. It is understood that the sovereignty and independence of the Haudenosaune existed in North America before Canada and the United States of America came into being. And it is recognized that the principles of Tkayeri2021 guided the founding fathers of the United States in its first steps toward a democratic society. I don't know if we want to get into that, because that's more like colonial history.
More bullshit.
Yeah. We actually influenced them to be a republic, more of a republic than a democracy. A democracy is corporatism in disguise. It's majority rule, it's mob rule, and it doesn't listen to everybody's voice. So, next. Sovereignty is the province of the nation. Individuals cannot invoke sovereignty without the consensus of the nation. The Haudenosaune is a confederacy of law. Law governs, and individuals are subject to this law.
Yeah, we basically covered that, is that we do not live under a system of law. Okay? What we've always had, I guess you want to use an English word, we always were a republic. That's where the United States gets that whole spiel about government by the people, for the people. And that's what you want to was. That's always what it was. The wish and the will of our people in accordance to what the ancestors had passed on to us. The path that they've laid out before us. That it's a path that was well traveled. And it's a path that would lead us to a good life. And never to stray away from that path, because when we stray from the path, we don't know what the outcome will be. So stay on your path. Don't try to take a shortcut. Stay on your path, because your path is clear. You know where you're going. And so the thing is, for them to say sovereignty was here before the coming of the white man. No, that wasn't here. There wasn't sovereignty here. It was freedom. It was liberty. That's what was here. And those are things that the white man understood, and that's why he's got the Statue of Liberty. That's why these people, the white man, the colonists, when they left the old country, they were here. The thing about it is, a lot of our people don't know, and many Americans don't know, is that the colonists found a way of life that was so attractive to them, so, desirable. It was the Uber way of life. And that this is where they found freedom and liberty, because none existed on the other side of the ocean. And so, when the people were convinced to go to war against Great Britain, the people were told that this newfound liberty, this newfound freedom that who is teaching you, is going to be taken away from you by the King of England. So the people took up arms, formed militias, and they started to refer to themselves as the Sons of Liberty. Because people don't know the original liberty. That's who liberty is. And that's why the colonists started to say, we are the Sons of Liberty. And they created a song, kind of following our way. And their song was, it's an old, old tree, but a strong, strong tree. We are the sons, sons of the Liberty Tree. Because they considered themselves to be Sons of Liberty. And that's why when they went at the seaports and dressed up as Mohawks, went on the ships and started throwing in the tea and all the high tax products, The soldiers at the ports could not do anything because the redcoats, the soldiers, did not have any jurisdiction or sovereignty over what they believed to be Ugauna. That's why all throughout the Atlantic coast, wherever there was a port, the people, the colonists, threw all that junk in the river because it was all just high tax product. They were not going to pay tax to a foreign sovereign. So they went on, and that's why they call themselves Americans. They call themselves, even like North Americans, Central Americans, South Americans. That is to try to legitimize themselves that they have a right to be in this land, that they have the right to possess our lands. Because the only people that were referred to as Americans was the Ugauna. And so these people started to say, well, we have a right to be here. Let's call ourselves Americans. So that's why each of the continents, the Western Hemisphere, they all refer to themselves as Americans. We try to legitimize their being here. I just thought there was a point of interest you should know.
The Haudenosaune stands on its original territories, free from time immemorial. The lands we stand on are sovereign and unalloyed, lands held in common by the people and under the jurisdiction of the Grand Council of Chiefs.
Let's go to the next paragraph.
We waste our time.
Let's get there.
Therefore, any enterprise or event that would affect the welfare, status, and rights of the people must have their unanimous approval, or the enterprise or event is illegal and outside the law of the nation.
You know, Canada, United States, that's their thing. You know, they talk about legal. You know, you just think back. There was a time, there was a bombing put on the scalps of a woman. $100 for a man, $50 for a woman, $25 for a child. They called that legal. They came and took hundreds of thousands of women who were children and stuck them in institutions. They called that legal. They had church, state, and enforcement all working together. And they murdered our children, did experiments on our children, and they called that legal. Whenever our people disapprove of what they're doing to us, they said, we're taking out an injunction, a so-called legal document to say we don't have a right to stand up for ourselves. Their only weapons to dispossess us of our connection to this land. We have always said, we don't own this land. This is our mother. Nobody can own our mother. She's herself. And we all benefit from her. And that's why none of us, from the East Coast to the Atlantic Coast, has a right to negotiate any part of our mother away. And you know, there is not, even in accordance with their system, there has never been a legal transaction of our land to them. Everything that was ever done was under duress. In our language, today people try to say they call treaty Ateronhiatakon. It's not what we said in our language. We said debunking. Because in order for us to enjoy a little bit of peace and not have to go to war, we allowed them a little bit more use of land to try to keep the peace. But they interpret that we relinquished the land. We never relinquished because we didn't have the right to relinquish any part of our mother. But we said our mother's a good woman and she'll take care of all children. That's our way. But we never gave away our land. We never sold our land. There have been individuals in the past who have made agreements when they had absolutely no right and no authority to do so. there are treaties that they tried to have us comply with or recognize, like the Canandaigua. Canandaigua is not ours. We never signed it. We, Tkayeri would not sign it. The Senecas would not sign it. The reason was because at that time, when we met with the United States, our representatives were not Rodianes. It was Ayumas. And the Ayumas were the Mohawks at that time with Aaron Hill. Aaron Hill, like Red Jacket, Joseph Brandt, John Deserano, Sohahillos, Canador, they were all formally educated in the finest schools in New England. They could all read and write. And so, when the so-called agreement was being worked on, Aaron Hill and Red Jacket says, we want to read that treaty. And the U.S. commissioners, they said, oh, no. They said, our way is to put it on paper. Your way is to put the words in the wampum. Aaron Hill says, we're not disputing that. He says, but we want to make sure that the words you put on your paper is the same words we're going to put in our wampum. Yeah. And they wouldn't let him read it. So then that's when the Mohawks and the Seneca said, if you're afraid to let us read it, therefore you got something to hide. And so we didn't sign that. 3 of the territories signed it. But I think they regretted it after. Because in there, it says that the United States is the authority. And it's the United States that will decide if this treaty will continue to go on. This is our home, our mother, and they want to make the rules. And now the other thing they keep promoting, the George Washington Belt. George Washington Belt isn't even a treaty. It was a wish of George Washington, and he commissioned, I don't want to say which nation, but he commissioned somebody to make that belt. I won't mention no names, but you see it right here. They did this belt up for him. And if you look at that belt, you'll see the longhouse is small. And it's inside the White House. Because they wanted dominion over us. So there's a lot of things that these guys talk about. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. They're misleading you. You need to start learning what the truth is. Yeah. You need to learn your history. And that, because even when I was growing up, they always said to me, learn everything you can about them. Learn their language, learn their religion, learn where they came from, learn everything you can about them. Because if you don't know them, it's going to be that much easier for them to fool you again. Okay? Don't let me tell you that again.
This brings into question the development of enterprise within the national boundaries of the Confederate Nations without the consent of the nations and its peoples. I think it differentiates the nations from its peoples.
That's right.
So I don't know why it does that.
Because the fact of the matter is, a nation is not a people. Nation has never been a people. We call ourselves a Kohun. We always refer to ourselves by the families, by the land. With them, a nation is just a higher form of a corporation. A nation is a collective of individuals who share a common interest. They don't have to have a common language, a common culture, even a common history, or anything in common other than the interest. And what is the interest? Because there's going to be documents appearing not long from now that Queen Victoria herself has signed. It'll be the original documents. And in those documents, it will make very clear that Canada is not a country. The United States is not a country. New York State is not, neither is Quebec, Ontario. Because at that time when Queen Victoria, those were the lands. They hadn't yet gone out west. And there she says, all of these are nothing but trading companies. That's all they are, trading companies. And when you think about the history of the trading companies, we hear about the wars that were fought between us, the Huron, the Anishinaabe, people all over. And we, the 5 territories, united, we had to fight all of them. 28 different territories, along with the Huron Confederacy, the Algonquin Confederacy, and the French. And it was all about economics. Because the French had sent the Jesuits among our people to incite other Umbahumas to wipe out what people call the 5 nations. 50 years they worked to create this war. And this war was fought for 150 years. But we, Iwanushuni, we defeated every single one of them. In the 150-year war, we defeated everybody. And the only reason that war happened was because of the fur trade. That's why it's called the Beaver Pelt Wars. That the Europeans were trading furs from our people for the trinkets they brought. But they were cheating our people. Haudenosaune said this cheating is going on too long. Because if one of our people wanted a gun, he had to pile beaver pelts as high as the gun. And when he reached that level, they put a bayonet on the gun and said, you gotta go that much higher. So imagine how many beaver you had to kill just to get a gun. So our people said, enough of this. So Haudenosaune, we put men all over the rivers, the lakes, and we told everybody not to trade, because if you keep killing the beaver off the way you are, you will destroy the ecology of this land. The beaver was such an important creature in our homelands. And so everybody was stopped. That's why they sent the Jesuits in to say to these other Mohawks, what, are the Mohawks your boss? Are the Iroquois your boss? Are you women? You got skirts? You let them tell you what to do? The old people didn't want to fight. It was the young men that were excited. And they're the ones that went to war with us. That's how all of these wars came about. That's how all this happened, because prior to the coming of the European, peace was established from all the way down to Florida to the north, all east of the Mississippi. Everybody was going to the corner to go. Not everybody was part of what people know as a confederacy, but they were friends and allies. That's why when the Seminoles, what they call the Seminoles, were fighting in Florida, we were there with them to defeat the United States. That was what we did, and we stood by each other. But that peace and that unification of our people was broken because of commerce. And these guys talk, they're applying the same rules on our people that the white man was applying to them. Their own people applied it to them, now they're applying it to us. You know, the thing is that since when was Rodianetsu responsible for the economy of our people? When were the Rodianetsu had the right to tell our men or women when and where they can fish, or when or where they can hunt, or any of these things, to gather wood or anything? That was our economy. Now they got the white man's economy, and they're trying to apply it to us so that they can control us. Taxation.
That's right.
It's taxation. And they're a part of this whole scheme of what they call the framework agreement.
Right.
And they're building paramilitary forces in our community, because that's the first ones that's going to assault us. That's who's going to push the white man's wish and will upon us. To them, might makes right.
Yeah.
If you're going to stop, if you're going to have any chance to withstand that storm, you're going to have to start working together. We're going to have to start pulling all our people together. And I'm not just talking about Kanyakahaga. I'm talking about all of Wahuma.
Okay.
Because all of Wahuma, we are family. We're all family. Just because we speak a different language we perform our Thanksgiving ceremonies differently, that doesn't make us different. We do what we do in accordance with the land we live on. But our philosophy and principles are still the same. When we say Uwahua and they say Anishinaabe, it means the same thing when you translate it. If you say Dene, it means the same thing. You say Lakota, it's the same thing. We're all Uwahua, and it all refers to us being one with creation. That's why we always knew we all started from the same fire. Pretty much.
So it's clear to me from this document that the Chiefs Council's claim or assert to speak for the nations, and they differentiate peoples from the nations. So we all think we're a nation, and when we think that, we're allowing these chiefs to direct us, to assert their laws. Their might makes right, because law is might makes right. It's coercion. That's how they operate. We operate by consensus, through deliberation, through unanimity. We come to a like mind or similar mindset, and we move forward. And that is how we are strong, and that's where our strength comes from. So if we are to withstand what's to come on our people, to bring back our ways, we have the best chance. And our ways can, include all Uwahua people and beyond. So I just wanted to say that point about the chiefs seeming like they're the nations. They're inseparable. So with this next point. Currently in the courts of the United States, there are cases brought against individuals of the various nations of the Haudenosaune, whose legal counsel are using the sovereignty as the basis of their defense of these individuals. Be it known from the Council of Chiefs of the Haudenosaune that this argument cannot be used without the consent of the nations of the Haudenosaune. Great law and sovereignty. And be it known to all courts of law in Canada and the United States and their respective governments that these businesses or enterprises of gas and oil sales, casinos, high-stakes bingo, and gambling enterprises are illegal. None have the consent or support of the nations. Therefore, individuals in all such business are without the sovereign protection of the Confederate Nations of the Haudenosaune. Dane to, Halidago Chief Leon Shenandoah, Secretary Audrey Shenandoah.
They talk about, what their position is going to be in the courts. Something, our people have no business in the courts. None whatsoever. This little project. Never mind fantasy story about the Ohad that we are traveling down the river of life with the white man and he's our brother and that. I am no brother to that creature. The thing is, this the Ohad that it tells very clearly the white man has nothing on this land. He's only here for the trade. And the first time that this was extended to the white man, because this has been here for hundreds of thousands of years. Uwahua had this understanding with one another. It always was there. We always respected one another. And that's what we had. We had this between all of us. When the white man came here, the Dutch was the first one we extended this to. And the Dutch were told they got no right on this land. The only right they have is the right we allowed, and one was to carry on trade. And the thing that the Dutch traded with us for, and that was the hemp rope and the cloth we made out of hemp, and the other products that came out of the hemp. Medicines, food byproducts, all these different things came from Odishka, what people call cannabis, marijuana, hemp, it's Odishka in our language. And that's what they traded for. And so, for them, they had to acknowledge that they weren't part of this land. And so it was said that they would stay in their ship. Their people, their religion, everything would stay in their ship. The only connection they would have to this land symbolically would be the hemp rope that was tied to their ship and tied to a bush on this land, just to keep them from floating off. That's what the original agreement was with them. And they used the hemp rope to express their commitment to going in accordance with the ways of this land and its people. That's what this Teohad. The French, it was the iron chain. The British, it was the silver chain, what they call the silver covenant chain. With the Americans, it was the gold rope. But none of them gave them foundation here. It was all about trade. And that's why Queen Victoria even signed the document. And it just went before a Supreme Court judge in Quebec. And he went back through it. His firm opinion is that Canada, the United States, province of Quebec, the state of New York, province of Ontario are not nations, but they're just trading corporations. And now our so-called Indians who say they want to comply with that system. There's a book that's written, it's called Pedagogy of the Oppressed. It's written by a man by the name of Paulo Freire. If you really want to understand things in a so-called intellectual way, that's a book to read. Another book is called How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. And what's the guy's name? Walter Rodney.
I just wanted to ask everyone if people are interested in sticking around to talk more or to hear more. We're going to pass the hat around because I had only booked the park till 4:30. It can go on, but we're going to have to pay like more fees for further use.
Who do we have to pay?
Parks and Recreation.
The band administration!
Yeah, we can do that after when we're getting ready to go. So we can just keep going on right now, not interrupt things.
Continue on.
Yes.
It's another collector from Minds and Resources.
Yeah.
You see, everything we need to know to defend ourselves, because we should not have to allow them to adjudicate our lives. It's never been the intent. That's why in the Ohade, it has clearly how we deal with the white man when we have a disagreement. Even though I say the Treaty of Canandaigua ain't what the paper's written on, the only part in there, and it'd be good for you to read it, it's Article 7 of the Canandaigua Treaty. In there it outlines, and it comes from the Ohade, and it comes from Canandaigua, is that if we have a problem, then like Canada, you know, oh, we have a problem, Indians are occupying their land. Well, it's up to them, Canada, to lodge a formal complaint to the Confederacy. And they will resolve this through peaceful means, political means. And if we are guilty of causing them an injury of any kind, we would compensate them. But vice versa. They have been causing injury, and our people have not been using this. Instead, we turn to lawyers. Lawyers cannot help you. The only thing a lawyer can do is try to find a loophole in their system that they didn't follow to get you off the charges, because they violated theirs. But you cannot take this into their courts. You cannot take any of ours into their courts, because their courts is a sandbox. and they only have certain rules in the sandbox, and you cannot bring your rules in there. Because it doesn't fit in there, so that's why they say, oh, no, you can't use that. You know, they can't use that, oh, this court is not designed to meet those arguments. That's what they tell you. Because no court has any right to deal with this. Not even the international court. And the thing is, it's between two adults. Two adults. Because the thing is that they have to take care of their own. That's why they're not even supposed to ever arrest our people. They're supposed to lodge formal complaints. And we deal with that politically. That's what's been going on over here. We told people. It said, what's your recommendation? It says, gather your people. It says, these are the honest to say they represent you. And go there and ask them if they're going to follow our ways. And if they're going to follow our ways, then they should be stepping up to the plate and making a statement to Canada, Ontario, and everybody else that if Ontario or Canada wants to resolve this, then the federal government, the Governor General, they should get involved and lodge a formal complaint. And that's how it will be resolved. But the DNS should make a statement. Any further aggression against our people, any more shooting rubber bullets at our people, anything, any more oppression than you impose upon our people, then we will take it as a declaration of war. And we will treat it as such. You don't have to say we're going to drop the atomic bomb on Ottawa. No, we just said we will treat it as such. Leave them guessing, trying to figure out what you're going to do. Because you can win the battle without war. Because the most powerful weapon you have is this. And if you use this, you can bring Canada down to its knees. You can bring the United States down to its knees. But you need to plan. One thing about, I was telling you about the 150-year war and how Haudenosaune defeated everybody. It's because we picked and chose our battles and how we were going to deal with them.
Oh.
Joe.
So that, I think, sufficiently debunks the chief's document. It was significant to discuss because this document has been a divisive one, and it's still, the beliefs within this document still reverberate to today, where people still believe a lot of these things. So it's important for us to at least talk about it and to address these matters. Now we're going to move on to more contemporary matters, but we're going to take a break so people could walk around and then we'll continue. Yeah.
Roll it, ready?